sovereignty. The federal government protects our rights at a baseline level, but states have always been free to go above and beyond that baseline level in providing additional freedoms and additional protections to the citizens of their various states. Procedurally, today we submit to the Ohio Attorney General. The Attorney General has 10 days to certify or not certify. Assuming the Attorney General certifies, the Ohio Ballot Board and Secretary of State then have 10 days in order to finalize the petition, and the grassroots movement can begin to collect signatures. If the Attorney General does not certify on the basis that our constitutional amendment conflicts with the Commerce Clause or the Necessary and Proper Clause, or rather conflicts with the statute on those grounds, then we have a direct right of action to the Supreme Court of Ohio to challenge the validity of the federal health care reform passed last evening immediately as improper as an exercise of the Commerce Clause and Necessary and Proper Clause. So if the Attorney General does not certify, which we believe would only be possible with as a very partisan maneuver, what we'll find is that the issue of the constitutionality of health care will reach the courts very, very quickly, maybe within the next 2 weeks. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions, including maybe some of those that were posed a little bit earlier of a legal nature to Chris Littleton.
So just to make sure I'm clear here, if you were to act now and get approval from the Attorney General and the ballot board, would you be able to act with the court soon enough to prevent anything from taking effect this year prior to the November vote?
Are you asking whether we can preempt the federal legislation?
Exactly. Those elements that are taking effect in the months to come.
What this initiative petition cannot do is stop the federal legislatures from legislating. What it can do is prevent that legislation from becoming effective in Ohio, but not until it's actually voted on by the voters, which means November plus then whenever it's actually implemented, which is several months after the November election. And to be clear, the goal here is November, but this group can continue to collect signatures if it falls short of its mark and its deadline and put it on the May ballot. So this is an effort that is monumental, but may have to continue.
The question of consistency here. We heard a lot of this in the arguments about Medicare, against Medicare. For consistency, why not go after Medicare, a law that's already on the books and a program that's already been established that has the same basic concept, which is money from everyone for elder health care? Why not just target Medicare?
That's a great question. The difference is, well, the differences are multiple. One is that it's not the same basis of constitutional authority that authorizes Medicare. Medicare is actually authorized under Congress's tax and spending authority, which is broader than Congress's Commerce Clause authority. And the reason that Congress can't use the tax and spending authority here is because they're not actually forcing you to buy government insurance. They're actually forcing you to buy private corporate insurance. What that does is that removes the regulation from the books. So it's no longer a budgetary issue as far as the mandate is concerned. Instead, it's simply a regulation of individual behavior. Medicare, Medicaid, as much as we understand to really affect our individual behavior, is actually considered to be a budgetary issue as far as the Congress is concerned, authorized pursuant to its tax and spending power, which is really beyond challenge by the average citizen because the average citizen doesn't actually have standing to challenge that. Does that answer your question?
I think it does, but I mean, the overall argument would be that everybody paying into a healthcare system, regardless of age, is helping to offset costs. Tax and spending, which is much the same way that Medicare does. Yeah, I know it's a different provision in that budget.
We can see that philosophically, the two have some equivalence, but constitutionally, we don't have a leg to stand on challenging Medicare or Medicaid. Here we have a pretty strong leg to stand on, which is why we've taken this route.
Yeah, additional philosophy for why this is chosen as well. Additional philosophy for why this is chosen as well would be simply the basis for why our groups even exist, and I'd say the basis for the entire Tea Party movement is we should have been controlling what we could control in the first place. We let it get out of hand, and I think that's something we all willingly admit, those of us who are leaders in this movement, is that we willingly let this get out of hand, And so this is our chance to take a stance in Ohio and say, okay, enough's enough. Really and truly, we can't, it's a lot harder to deconstruct existing legislation, to deconstruct existing programs, though I think all of us would love to see a ton of reforms done within, federal programs all over the place. But we are where we are. What can we do right now to allow it not to get any more out of control than what we've willingly admit allowed to happen before? I mean, I pick on Medicare Part D as a very specific example of that expansion that you're talking about. Well, where were we then? I'll say that's an important point. Absolutely, it was very recent. So that is philosophically, absolutely. So this is that moment in time where we're drawing a line in the sand for ourselves and saying, people of Ohio, if you agree with us, this is enough, enough's enough, and this is our moment to take that stance.
Chris, how do you plan on actually winning this? I mean, you have to get